welcome to Moving Panels One Shot. Let's have a nerdy little conversation. And today we're actually, I'm almost going to hand the microphone over to my wife, Bethany.
That's right.
And we are going to do a little one shot that we are calling A Feminist Perspective of the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, I am not a feminism expert, but I do like to look at movies, especially popular movies, and how they represent women, how they show women. And the MCU being one of the most popular film franchises ever, I thought it was important to take a look at how they viewed half of the population of the planet.
Yeah, very important.
So the Bechdel test...
I have a bad feeling considering there's only one female Avenger.
Well, two.
Well, later. But
Yeah.
when we started off, one female Avenger.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I'll just right up front, they don't come off so great at the beginning. So a few months ago, just some background, I decided, nerdily, to watch through all the MCU movies in chronological order.
Inspired by other co-host Tim Williams.
Yes, the great, wonderful Tim Williams. And while I was doing that, I kind of kept track of which ones were my favorite, the death count in all of the movies, and also which movies did and did not pass the Bechdel test.
Now, I want to make it clear, because I know you're about to give us a little lection about the Bechdel test. This does have a comic book connection in a way, correct?
It does, actually, it does. In 1985, Alison Bechdel wrote a comic strip called Dykes to Watch Out For. It featured two lesbian characters discussing how they were not represented in film. Love stories for them were not represented in movies. And so the only way they could even imagine that two women would end up together romantically would be if two women spoke to each other about something other than a man for 2 lines of dialogue.
Which you would think should be pretty easy.
And yet, here we are. So, like I said, 1985, Dykes to Watch Out For. Alison Bechdel is an incredible female cartoonist. She's also written a biographical graphic novel called The Fun Home, which was eventually turned into a musical called The Fun Home. And it's a story of her coming out story, and it goes along with her father's coming out story. It's very sad, but it's beautiful, beautiful music. She also would like it if we stopped calling it the Bechdel test. And
what does she want it to be called?
She wants it to be called the Bechdel-Wallace test because it was inspired by an idea that her friend Liz Wallace had based on the writings of Virginia Woolf. And
Okay.
So she wants us to stop saying the Bechdel test. I'm going to struggle with that. But the Bechdel-Wallace test...
She's trying to give credit. It's like,
she is, and that's great.
It's like, we recently have started to give credit to Bill Finger for co-creating Batman. Right. And so, yeah, it's respectable. It
is. She's very interesting person. If you want to read up on her, I highly recommend it.
All right, let's start at the start. Do we want to go chronologically, or do we want to go in order of release?
Oh, boy. Probably order of release will make more sense.
All right, so let's start with the one that started it all. We've done an episode on this one. How about Iron Man? How does Iron Man stack up?
Not good. So, to establish, I know I kind of briefly mentioned it. The Bechdel test requires 3 things. 2 women who have names talk to each other for 2 lines of dialogue about something other than a man.
All right, so we got Pepper Potts.
Uh-huh. And that lady.
And the reporter.
Yeah. They speak to each other about Tony Stark and Jarvis. Jarvis, not technically a man, but voiced by male-identifying actor Paul Bettany. And then it's very slut-shamey. Am I allowed to say that on this podcast?
You just did.
Okay. Well, it's Pepper Potts. She is very judgmental of the reporter. And that's the only time 2 women talk to each other in that movie. And it does not pass, in my opinion.
And Pepper Potts is such a strong female character.
She is. And I would like to establish that passing the Bechdel test does not make it a feminist movie. You've got movies like She's All That, where it passes strictly because one character tells Rachel Lee Cook, you should kill yourself. And Rachel Lee Cook responds back with, that's mean. And that's a pass.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider that feminist. Then you have other movies that don't pass that I would consider pro-female characters. And we'll get into that later. So yeah, I would say...
You mean there's one in the MCU?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It's
suspense.
It's a doozy. Don't look at my notes.
All right, so that was Iron Man.
Yeah, and it failed bad, aggressively, I have in my
I'm
notes.
just going to go ahead and guess we should probably just skip Incredible Hulk.
It failed.
Okay.
Because there's one female character with a name in that movie.
Yeah. We got Betty Ross.
Yes. The end.
And, well, hold up now. So now we're on to Thor. And we do have both Jane Foster and we have Darcy.
And that movie passes with flying colors.
Awesome.
Jane Foster and Darcy talk to each other about science, about other stuff. Occasionally they're talking about Thor, especially once he shows up. But really, throughout the whole film, the two of them talk to each other frequently. They've got their own thoughts and opinions. Their conversations progress the plot. It's not just a simple, hey, go kill yourself. Hey, that's mean. It's, we need to go do this. Hey, we need to move forward here. Because of conversations the two of them are having, it moves them to the place where Thor ends up. It moves them around. It's not just a simple, I would like a sandwich. What kind of sandwich? John, what do you think what kind of sandwich I should have? And yet somehow that passes. Mm-hmm. So anyways, Thor passed.
Well, good for Thor. It's that movie needed something else.
You know what? I don't hate that movie. Let's see where I'm not going to tell you where I ranked it because that's a podcast for another day. But I didn't hate it.
All right. Well, then let's move on to the next male-led superhero movie.
Oh, don't preface that because that's 99% of these MCU movies.
So next we have Captain America, the First Avenger, with Peggy Carter.
There is that other lady, and I can't remember if she has a name or not, but there is a scene where the two of them, it's that blonde scientist lady who there's like sexual tension, like she's all flirty with Captain America.
So I'm guessing
and then Peggy gets
when they
jealous.
talk, they're talking about Steve.
They don't speak.
Oh, okay. Even better.
Peggy speaks to Steve, and then the blonde woman is silent. There is no conversation between the two of them. So even if she did have a name, didn't pass anyways. So that's a fail. Although I will say I love the character of Peggy Carter. I know eventually you want to record an episode about What If. The episodes with Captain Carter were great. I enjoyed her. I enjoyed her character. She's got a lot of depth to her, so it's interesting to me.
All right, so that takes us into The Avengers, where we finally get introduced to Black Widow.
No, we get introduced to Black Widow during Iron Man 2.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Which comes before the Avengers.
Yeah, I was skipping over Iron Man 2 since we'd already talked about Iron Man.
Well, that is when Natasha is introduced.
That's
and
right.
it technically passes the Bechdel test.
Because she and Pepper talk.
About business stuff.
Yeah.
Vaguely. As in, like, does this look good? Yeah, it does. So, technically a pass, but not a plot-driven pass. It was really just like a filler, like, let's not just have these two characters walk into the room in silence. Let's have them look over an iPad and discuss stuff and then move on. And there's still, especially right there at the beginning of Iron Man, they didn't know what to do with Pepper's character. Like, she doesn't really become a strong character until she's not in them very much. Like, the first two Iron Man movies, she's kind of damseled a lot. She's pushed to the side. In Iron Man 2, they put her in charge of Stark Industries, and she fails at it. Like, she doesn't do very well, which, later on...
That's not really part of her doing.
No, but what I'm saying is it's almost like they set her up for failure. And that's the chance she gets. But then it's almost like they try to retcon it later, because it seems like once Tony gets more invested in
being Iron Man,
she's more in charge of
Stark Industries.
Yes.
All right. And so now we go to the Avengers.
Yes, here we are at the Avengers.
Where we do add Anita Hill.
Yes.
Another female character gets added
Who
in.
doesn't speak to anyone but Nick Fury. That's a big, hard fail for the Avengers. There's even a scene where I'm just, like, begging them to say, like, would you like to take a seat? No, thank you. I'm good standing. Mm-hmm. Even if it's, like, a passive-aggressive, like, oh, excuse me. No. They aggressively do not speak to each other. That Black Widow and Robin from How I Met Your Mother.
Anita Hill.
Anita Hill.
Which is so interesting because we're talking Joss Whedon.
Right.
Who very infamously, created Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
He writes a lot of great female characters. Unfortunately, we have found out recently that Joss Whedon doesn't treat women very well. But, yeah, there's just not enough women. Like, that's where the Bechdel test, I think that's the comment the Bechdel test is trying to make, is there just aren't enough women in the story for them to talk to each other. Women make up half the population, and yet we're saying, well, here are these two characters. We can't even get them to talk to each other.
All right, so should we even talk about Iron Man 3?
Fails.
Okay. Thor Dark World, we still got
Thor Dark World technically passed between Natalie Portman and his mama.
Okay.
Frigga?
Yes.
Frigga. So yeah, it passes. It's not a lot of conversation, but again, we're coming down to this, like, having to nitpick. There are 24 movies we're going to discuss because we have not seen.
We will start to rapid fire, though, on some of these.
No. And we're nitpicking because we're like, well, here are two characters. Because Darcy's not even in that Thor movie.
She is?
No.
I didn't remember. Okay. All right, so what about Winter Soldier?
Fail.
All right, moving on. Hey, we got another female in the main group here. Gamora, Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's a pass.
Awesome. Who does she talk to?
Her sister,
Nebula.
I was going to say Sodom, and that's wrong.
Nope. Yeah. No, Nebula.
Yes, she and Nebula speak to each other about things that are other than men. Even though a lot of their conversations about their father, most of their conversation is about other things.
And another two very strong female characters.
Exactly. They're incredible. I love their characters.
All right, moving on. We got Age of Ultron, where we get introduced to Scarlet Witch.
That is correct.
So we got Scarlet Witch and Black Widow.
And yet they never speak to each other.
Well, dang it. All right, moving on. Ant-Man.
Fail.
Yeah, I was about to say, I can only think of Hope. Well, no, then his wife.
He's got his wife and his daughter.
But
yet they only ever talk about Scott.
Yeah.
And his wife, who I do think they give a name, doesn't speak to Hope. And she only talks to her daughter about her dad. So fail.
Okay. Civil War.
Only technically, and it's kind of debatable. So here's where it gets a little controversial. So at the very beginning, they're all doing they're spy talking to each other in little headsets. Mm-hmm. And Natasha says something to Black Widow.
Natasha is Black Widow.
No. Excuse me. Natasha says something to Scarlet Witch. Wanda. And Wanda responds, but it's like vaguely to her and vaguely to the group.
Okay.
So if we want it to, it passes. But it's debatable. So that's a controversy. I'll let you decide.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm not. I have no card in this game.
Smart choice.
All right. I have a bad feeling about this one. Doctor Strange.
Fail.
Yeah. There are two women, but I don't think they ever have a scene together.
No, they don't. They don't like women in these movies, Laramy.
All right, back to Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2. We get introduced to Mantis, so there's another female character.
There's a lot of passing in Guardians of the Galaxy, too.
Awesome. Anything you want to elaborate on?
No. I mean, it's the same with the first one.
All right, now let's, MCU-ish. Let's do Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spider-Man does not fare well in this game. You got Mary Jane, but she doesn't talk to anybody but Spider-Man. You got Why do I want to say Aunt M?
Aunt May.
Aunt May. You got Aunt May, but she only ever talks to Tony Stark or Spider-Man.
Okay.
So
yeah, I had a bad feeling about that one.
That's a fail.
All right. I got a bad feeling about this one, too, even though it was a strong female villain. Thor Ragnarok.
Okay. This movie aggressively fails, and I'm going to need a minute to discuss this one. Okay. So there is a scene at the very beginning where Valkyrie and Topaz are right there. We know both of their names, and I'm going like, just say something to each other. And they not only don't speak to each other, but they're talking through a man, about a man. So I would say this movie aggressively fails. But it goes back to my previous statement. I think that this movie is very pro-female characters. Hela is an incredible, villain character. You understand her motivations. You understand why, she's evil. And you understand why she's got to be taken down. And she's scary.
Yeah.
And she's even if it's in a negative way, she's a strong character. Valkyrie's an incredible character. I could watch a whole movie about Valkyrie. Wink, wink, Disney. And so Valkyrie, you understand her motivations. You understand why she feels the way she does. You get excited when she's on screen. I mean, she's a great character. Love Tessa Thompson. She killed it. And even the woman who plays Topaz, Rachel House, she's an interesting character. And even though they never speak to each other, it aggressively fails the Bechdel-Wallace test. I would still put this in a pro-women category for MCU movies.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Again, I have no balls to play. Moving on.
That's right, you don't. That's not the game we're playing.
Moving on, we go to the big epic Avengers Infinity War.
Nah. That's a fail.
Well, come on. We've got Black Widow. We've got Scarlet Witch. We've got Anita Hill. We've got Pepper Potts.
Pepper Potts
Gamora
talks to Tony
comes
Stark.
in.
Pepper Potts talks to Tony Stark. Gamora talks to Chris Pratt. Scarlet Witch talks to Vision. They talk to a man, and they talk to a man. And honestly, to be on the fair side to this, the huge push in this movie is talking about
the Infinity Stones. Thanos?
The huge push in this movie is talking about Thanos. So he's the main plot point.
All right. There's a lot of positivity behind this one. Crossing my fingers. Black Panther.
Black Panther is a perfect movie when it comes to the Bechdel-Wallace test. Oh my gosh. Laramy, the female characters. There are more strong female characters in this movie than strong male characters in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I could cry talking about it. So I'm going to take a minute to talk about how fabulous this cast is. First of all, you got Lupita Nyong'o playing Nakia. Is that how you pronounce it? So she is strong. You understand her motivations. She is not tethered to T'Challa. She does her own thing. She tells him, this is what I believe, and I can't be tied down to you because you are not going to follow what's going to fulfill me. You've got, Danae...
Your guess is going to be as good as mine.
Guerrera, who plays Okoye. she's, oh my goodness, I love her character. And she even has romantic interest. She's got this strong, amazing, like, she's a fighter.
Yeah,
and
I mean, she
a
leads
stronger fighter than T'Challa is.
Yeah, she leads the Dora Milaje, which is a whole army of females.
And they're the bad A's in this whole country. And then you've got Shuri, played by Letitia Wright. And is there a more perfect character?
More perfect character? I'm
she's
sure.
She's funny. She is smart.
Oh, yeah.
She is strong. She is interesting. I want all of her. I just want to watch things about her all the time. You got Angela Bassett, need I say more?
The Queen.
The Queen. Like, when you say Yas Queen, you're talking about Angela Bassett. So, all that being said, Black Panther, love it. It passes. Flying colors. Upright, left down. BA start.
Okay. All right, what about female led? What about Captain Marvel?
Oh my gosh, it's the first one starring a woman. That's so weird. And yes, it passes with flying colors. I know people don't love this movie. I actually enjoy it. But it's a good pass. It's a good hard pass. There's many characters that are female. They talk to each other about a lot of things other than men.
All right. And then we got Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Ant-Man and the Wasp passed.
Awesome.
Hope and her mom. They talk to each other.
Okay.
And there you go.
All right. And then the end-all be-all, Avengers Endgame.
It passes.
Yeah, because doesn't Captain Marvel and Black Widow talk to each other?
They talk to each other. Okoye, I'm sorry. They speak to each other, and it's about strategies. It's not about men. It's about how to survive in this world.
All right, and then we break off again from the MCU to go to the Spider-Man universe, Far From Home.
No, I'm sorry, but no, Peter, you don't let women speak to each other.
All right, and then this one has to. We're going to end it all with Black Widow.
Black Widow passes.
It has to.
It obviously does. It passes between Natasha and her sister, Florence Pugh. Mm-hmm. And between her mom, Rachel Weisz. Spoiler alert. No, that's at the very beginning. We're good.
And
it even
people
passes.
Hasn't seen it by this point.
Yeah, well, it even passes during the end credits scene, which, am I allowed to talk about that?
Sure.
Between Val and Florence Pugh. I'm bad at these names, Laramy.
That's okay.
And we have not seen Shang-Chi.
Yeah, Shang-Chi has come out, but that's one we have not seen yet, so we can't speak on that one, or Bethany can't speak on that one.
She cannot.
I should say.
Well, we can go to the scholarly website, Bechdel-Test.com, and look it up and find out what the scholars on that website have said. So according to the Bechdel test movie list, Shang-Chi does pass. It passes 3 out of 3 tests, although dubious, according to the website. It doesn't sexualize female characters, which is the only other comment I see on here. So that's very vague, and I have no other things to say about that.
All right. So overall, I think we kind of gathered from your list. Overall, what is the best movie out of the MCU that really gets across the feminine perspective?
Honestly, there's 3. Can I say 3 answers?
Sure, your top 3.
Top 3. It's going to be, and in no particular order, but Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and the Black Widow. Black Panther, while technically a male-led film, the plot moves forward because of women. Mm-hmm. I mean, T'Challa gets, discarded halfway through the movie. And so it's the women in his life have to move forward, have to figure out what's going on. Captain Marvel is obvious. Like, it almost doesn't pass the reverse Bechdel test, which is 2 men with names talking to each other about something other than women. And then you've got Black Widow. It passes over and over and over again.
Almost for the same reason. There's almost no male
There's
characters.
very few male characters, which I'm fine with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a huge franchise, 24 movies total. Since the movies have come out in 2008 was when the first movie came out, Iron Man. Iron Man was the second highest rated, or brought in the most money that year. Just about every year after that, it has either been the highest rated movie or been like second or third place. And some years when there are multiple movies coming out, like in 2019, Avengers Endgame came out. It was the #1 box office draw. And then Captain Marvel was #4. So here we have these movies that do not represent half of the world's population. And you can't give that old song and dance about how, well, these are movies that are more geared towards men. Everyone watches these movies. It's a universal, unilateral experience, and we are not seeing all perspectives.
Do you think it's getting better, though?
I do think it's getting better. You know, some of the earlier movies don't hold a candle to Black Panther, Black Widow, even Thor Ragnarok, though technically it doesn't pass. It shows women being part of the plot, as opposed to Iron Man 2, where you've got two very capable female characters. As a matter of fact, they're so capable that in later movies, they are some of the strongest characters, and yet Pepper Potts and Natasha in Iron Man 2 are basically blow-up dolls. They serve no purpose. They're just there for sexual attention, for the male gaze. And I mean...
Isn't that Chris Hemsworth, though, in all the Thor movies for a female?
But he has a plot. Like, he gets to do things. As opposed to in Iron Man 2, Pepper Potts did not do anything. She would get pushed over. She would get dangled off of a cliff. She would get told to run down steps in 6-inch heels and a tiny skirt. I mean, Black Widow does a little bit more. But even then, she only has that one scene where she kicks.
And poses.
Yeah. And they even take it a step further. Like you said, it's getting better. To comment on that in the Black Widow movie, where Frances Pugh says, like, why do you always pose like that? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why do you do that? And she's like, there's no answer for it. Mm. And so, you know, I love these movies. I enjoy them. I've enjoyed going to the theaters to watch them with you every time, except for the last year and a half where we've been stuck in our house and we're, you know, peeling yellow wallpaper.
All right. So to bring this to a close, since we're getting, like I said, the feminist perspective, I want to ask your thoughts on the female superhero team up that happened in Endgame where they were protecting Spider-Man. Do you think it was a girl power, for lack of a better term there, moment, or do you think it was fan service?
I really think it was fan service because they didn't do much. It was a short shot. They all kind of posed, but all of those women can do a lot more than save some stupid teenager. Now, granted, it was a fun, exciting moment. I got excited when I saw it, but I mean, what else? Like, women in that movie got like a 30-second chunk where it was like, yeah, go women, in a 2.5-hour long movie where it was mostly like, yeah, Avengers, dudes.
Not 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours, excuse me. Well, you know, I'm giving an hour leeway where there was like some women on the screen.
All right. Well, thank you, Bethany, for your feminist perspective on the MCU.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me rant.
All right. Thank you for joining us. For Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page. And I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Hello, movie viewers and fellow movie lovers. My name is Tim Williams, and I'm the creator and host of Movie Views Presents the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. See, I love the 80s, and I have a great appreciation and nostalgic passion for the classic 80s flicks that birthed my love for movies and ultimately helped shape my childhood. On each episode, I'll discuss, with a special guest co-host of course, a different film from the 1980s. We'll share memories, favorite characters, iconic scenes, and even share some behind-the-scenes stories along the way. We'll discuss famous blockbusters like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Coming to America, Ghostbusters, Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, Die Hard, and many, many more, as well as some other cult classics and even lesser-known flicks we discovered on cable TV or the now-defunct video rental stores. Remember those? No matter what 80s flick we choose to talk about, we'll always have a good time, so come and check us out. You can find the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast on major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and more. Be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode. Once again, I'm Tim Williams, and I hope you'll join me for the next 80s Flick Flashback.